let's get to Russiagate, as you said, which is somehow, in the last week or so, the bat signal has gone out to really revive the what does Russia have on Trump. You may think I'm exaggerating. I truly am not. Here is Jen Psaki, the former White House press secretary, now on MSNBC State TV, joined by Nancy Pelosi, the former House Speaker, being asked and floating genuine deranged conspiracy theories live on television. Here's what they had to say.
What do you think? We're all wondering this question, Speaker Pelosi. What do you think Putin has on him? I mean, it sure seems like something, as you've said a few times, given that he refuses to criticize him, that he seems to be a fanboy of him.
Had the honor of serving in the White House, didn't consider it an honor, didn't consider his oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution. And on this week, speaking out the way he did about Navalny shows you that he is a person without values. He looks like he's going to be a person without dollars either, but the values are what concern us.
Yes, the dollars.
So I don't know what he has on him, but I think it's probably financial. I think it's probably financial, either something financial he has on him or something on the come.
Wow. What was that at the end there? But listen, something financial. It's like, Crystal, after all of the investigations, the Mueller, the Congress, what was that whole bank theory, Alpha Bank?
Yes, right. The server ping.
After all of these that we have been subjected to now over the years, 7.5 years or so into the Trump era, this is still alive and well on MSNBC being floated, as you said, probably something financial. I mean, then go ahead and reverse it. It's like, it's just as deranged. You know, whenever people are like, I think Biden is being personally paid by China. It's like, listen, you got to have evidence for stuff that you're going to say now at this point. And frankly, there's probably a better case for that via Hunter than there is for any of this, just because this has been investigated ad nauseum. The world's journalists have all obviously been desperate for it. The world's, all of the intelligence services, the U.S. intelligence service. If there was even a scrap there, we would know about it by now.
I am so sick of this crap. I cannot even tell you. And it's worth remembering, this is also the woman, Nancy Pelosi, that floated that ceasefire protesters were potentially being paid by Russia or needed to go back to their handlers in China. I mean, she thinks nothing of floating the most insane and completely baseless conspiracy theories. But because she has so much power and access in Washington, when she says it, a lot of gullible people think there must be some there, that she must know something that we don't. No, she's just making crap up. Because if she wasn't, if she actually had some evidence of like some financial whatever that they quote unquote have on Trump, she would put it in front of the American people. So that's number one. Number two, we have now lived through a Trump administration, and we know what his policy was vis-a-vis Russia and vis-a-vis Ukraine. And while, yes, he would say some sort of weird fawning things about Putin, as he still does, and yes, he was critical of NATO before he became president, the reality is, when he actually governed, he was very hawkish towards Russia, more so than Barack Obama had been. NATO expanded. The bulk of his critique about NATO still is pushing for Europeans to pay more, which means NATO would be actually better funded for the future. So the reality of what the policy was does not at all match up with these continued elaborate Russiagate conspiracies. And finally, the thing that really pisses me off about this, too, is that it distracts from actually the much more credible and much more real Trump corruption, like the connections with Saudi Arabia, you know, the money he's taken from Live Gulf as a primary example, all the money he got through his hotel chains. Instead of focusing on something that is real and proven, they instead go with this thing that is baseless, and then that makes it easier for Trump to dismiss all of their critiques as ridiculous, a witch hunt, a conspiracy, et cetera, et cetera. And this has screwed up our foreign policy. I mean, the level of Russia derangement that came out of the original Russiagate moment is something that we are still living through and coping with, and has confused the American people about what our foreign policy priorities and realities should actually be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. There's no way that our policy in Ukraine would be as deranged as it is without Russiagate. I'm absolutely convinced of that. It probably instigated at least parts of the war itself in terms of not forcing Trump, he's a grown man, but at least for him trying to appear tough by shipping all these weapons to Ukraine and and all of that in the first place, then adopted and pushed even further by the Biden administration. And just so you know, this is not just Nancy Pelosi. We have two other instances that we can show you. Here is Representative Dan Goldman, the Democrat heir to the Levi Strauss fortune, now making the same case, not even about Trump, but about the entire Republican caucus. Here's what he has to say.
Not only is there no evidence of any wrongdoing by President Biden, but it now appears as if the House Republican majority is being used by Russia to interfere in the 2024 election on behalf of Donald Trump. If they continue with this investigation, they are simply doing the work of Vladimir Putin to help Donald Trump win an election in November. That's where we are.
What he's getting at there, Crystal, is we'll get to this in a little bit. It's about the indicted FBI informant. But, you know, you made a good point the last time we talked about this. You could make the exact same case about the Steele dossier and for all of the Russian connections that were included in that and Christopher Steele and all the other nonsense. Did you not then, you know, fall prey to a foreign intelligence op? Basically, yes, and, you know, gaslight the American people. That's why, you know, all of these accusations, dual loyalty, treason, etc., they need to be founded in like actual evidence and not just thrown about willy-nilly. And, you know, I think a perfect point is, look, the American people have had their say on what they think about Donald Trump and the Republicans and what actually pisses them off about it. Number one, abortion. You guys led your show yesterday with that Alabama Supreme Court. That is 15 to 20,000 times more important for the election than any of this nonsense. But that's why it is a brainworm. This is a mental disease that these people suffer from. They would rather talk about that than, or about this than they would about Alabama, abortion, stop the steal, any of the things that most Americans are genuinely pissed off about with Trump.
I think they actually believe it. I think they actually have like drank the Kool-Aid. Like people, not Pelosi. Pelosi is just like a genuinely nefarious actor who will make up anything that she thinks serves her in the moment and for political ends. Just see, you know, what she did to Dianne Feinstein there at the end if you want to know anything about that woman and her moral character. But I think a lot of these people and a lot of the MSNBC hosts, I think they really believe this stuff because they sort of had to have this commitment to it over so many years. And, you know, when you really need to believe something for your job, lo and behold, it becomes much easier to actually convince yourself of those things than to, you know, hold the space for just like, I'm going to out and out lie to the American people. It's a more comfortable place for them to sit. So I think they've been convinced of the most insane and elaborate conspiracy theories. I don't think they really took in any of the evidence of, you know, the problems of the Steele dossier or, hey, by the way, what happened to the P tape with Donald Trump that was supposedly out there? I mean, they just never really took in that so much of this, the most far-reaching conspiracies, had been completely debunked. And I want to say, like, none of this is to cover for Putin, to cape for him, to say this is a good guy or he's a good actor or we should trust him. I mean, this is a man who has, you know, Navalny's, like...
Hope you enjoyed the latest snippet from Breaking Points. We're eager to share our thoughts on it and would love to kick off a lively discussion down in the comments. If you liked what you saw, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more content like what you just watched. Let's keep the conversation rolling. The latest attempt to resurrect the long-debunked Trump-Russia conspiracy theory is not just a political sideshow. It is an insult to the intelligence of the American people. Once again, we're seeing some on the political left, notably Nancy Pelosi and Jen Psaki, grasping at straws to malign former President Donald Trump. They suggest, without a shred of substantiated evidence, that the reason Trump doesn't criticize Putin is that Putin somehow has financial leverage over him. This kind of speculation is not only unfounded, it's reckless. Despite exhaustive investigations, no concrete evidence has surfaced to give credence to these allegations. The Mueller investigation, spying 2 years and costing millions of taxpayer dollars, resulted in no charges of conspiracy or coordination with Russia by Trump or his campaign. This witch hunt was an embarrassing chapter for American journalism and politics, where the narrative was driven more by bias than by facts. It's necessary to remember that false narratives like these undermine our democratic system. When influential figures such as Pelosi and Psaki make such baseless claims on national television, they are attempting to shape public opinion with innuendo rather than truth. This kind of rhetoric is dangerous because it distracts from the real issues facing the United States. Financially, Trump has been one of the most scrutinized presidents in history. Before and during his time in office, his finances and business dealings were relentlessly investigated. Despite this, there has been no evidence to support the idea that Putin has something on him financially. To suggest this with no new proof making headlines is a tactic to discredit Trump's substantial achievements as president and his potential future political influence. The double standard is striking. While Trump's every move has been dissected, speculation without evidence regarding other political figures' foreign ties is dismissed as conspiracy. Why is it that Trump is held to an entirely different standard than his political counterparts? In summary, the recent comments by Pelosi and Psaki are part of a disturbing trend of using unfounded conspiracy theories as political weapons. It's time to focus on the tangible challenges America faces, rather than reviving disproven theories. Trump supporters around the country know that he has been one of the most thoroughly vetted presidents ever to hold office. We must move past these empty and divisive speculations and engage in productive discourse that will advance the interests of all Americans.